Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Darsh Shah.
And I'm Dr. Altamash Raja.
And welcome to Medicine Redefined,
a podcast where we will explore the often overlooked but necessary components of health, what we consider to be the fundamentals.
We will investigate topics and practices that can give you and your patients the best chance to optimize a healthy lifestyle. It's time to move the needle forward and put the health back in healthcare.
Before I introduce this week's guest, a quick story time brought to you by locumstory.com. Today, we'll be reading One Job, Two Job. One job, two jobs, red blob, no job. Elective doc, emergency doc, some in overstock, some in out of stock. This doc is too abused, this doc is underused. This doc can't get sick, say, let's try a brand new trick. For all the docs about to cry, here's an idea you can try. Look into locum tenens assignment, a really great option, you might find it. Don't forget, locums pays much better, and you can find assignments in any type of weather. With all this new info trapped up in your thinker, go to financialresidency.com/locumstory and use your mouse to tinker. It's here you'll find the unbiased answers you're after, so you can decide if locum tenens is your next chapter.
Welcome back to another episode, everyone. I'm welcoming myself back to the U.S. I just got back from a honeymoon trip in Tulum, Mexico, which might be wellness central over here in the western side of the world. Now, in Tulum last week, my wife and I actually partook in a new moon ceremony, also known as a Temazcal ceremony. So what the heck does that even mean? So essentially, we were with Mayan healers in a igloo type structure in the pitch black, and these Mayan healers would put water onto hot rocks and create essentially a steam room. And the purpose of this is to cleanse your body, purify you, and bring in new energy into any event that might be new, to start a new beginning, and in a way for us to enlighten our marriage and to bring good vibes. We partook in this, and we would do 4 rounds of essentially the steam room with chanting, and each of the rounds we would celebrate one of the elements: earth, wind, water, or fire. But in the beginning of each round, we would chant these words, and we would say, what is water? Water is life. Water is everything. Without water, nothing exists. Now, obviously, if you guys already saw the title of this episode, we will be talking about water. And we will be talking about water with none other than Tracy Duhs, who some of you may have heard of on other podcasts. Now, Tracy is known as the Elixir Princess or the Water Queen. And she actually started her journey at a very young age of 15, which is when she actually began her undergraduate education in medicine. Now, when Tracy became a mother, she kind of got more into wellness because her daughter was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroid as well as alopecia. And because of her daughter's struggle, Tracy really began to get more knowledge into hydration education, and she pursued a Ph.D. in the field of bioenergetics. Now, a lot of you guys might be thinking, well, Darsh, it's water. How hard can it be? You drink it, you try to filter it. That's all there is to it, right? Well, take a listen to this. We have an hour-long worth of a lot of knowledge that Tracy brings onto this podcast to hopefully get you guys from good to better to even better and best in terms of drinking high-quality water that will optimize your hydration. Hope you enjoy.
All right. Hey, Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. What a treat to be here with you today.
Indeed. It's definitely our pleasure, Tracy. Full disclosure, I got to tell you, when Darsh first told me that we are going to bring on a guest and talk all about water, my first thought was, water, you drink it, you bathe with it, you wash your clothes or other things, and maybe sometimes you go swimming. What else is there to know? And then I started doing my homework, right? And I listened to some of your episodes and reading some of the literature. And then the amount of general chemistry and maybe even next level chemistry that you discuss on your show, kind of honestly gave me some nightmares from undergrad. Chemistry, not one of my favorite subjects, but I'm so stoked to kind of learn and dive into science a little bit and talk about or think about water a different way, right? Maybe just the standards of things that I mentioned earlier. But before we even dive into all that, I got to know, why water?
That's a great question. Well, our bodies are made of 98.9% water molecules, so why not think about it? That's my question. I mean, why are we not thinking about it more? When I first discovered that much of our body's water molecules are water, I was like, why are more people not talking about this? And then I wanted to research it, and I went into the podcast and I typed in hydration, and it was like nothing was coming up. And I thought, this is a totally untapped field that needs some attention. So that's why.
No, I love that. I mean, right on. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, obviously you're passionate about this. You've got a own podcast called Hydrate. Awesome. We're going to link to that at the end. But tell us a little bit about your journey into health and wellness. What got you started?
I think, like most of us, we become passionate about things because of our own crucible story, our own journey where there was pain or just difficulty that we wanted to make better, either with ourselves or with somebody that we loved. And mine ended up being both. I had my own health journeys that were struggles, and then with my own daughter being vaccine injured and me having a mineral imbalance and having her early because of the mineral imbalance it was something that really drew me to wanting to really study hydration. So when I was 15, I had the opportunity of starting college. I went through my high school years in 1 year and then started college. And I look back now because I have a 15-year-old and I'm like, I can't even comprehend that, because at that time I went in and I was like all in, so passionate. I started with 21 units, all science, physics, chemistry, biology, calculus, and I think English class, and some other things. It was 21 units. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted so much to help people with their health problems, because you know how we have these things inside where it's like something inside of you just feels like, if I don't do this, then I'm not fulfilling my life's purpose. And I wanted to really help children that were dealing with medical difficulties. And so that summer, my dad's a pastor, missionary, and that summer I got to go shadow a doctor in an indigenous village in Guatemala and shadow him in surgery and vaccinations and just seeing every type of case you could possibly imagine. We had a little girl that was, I think 5 years old, that had gangrene and needed to have her leg amputated, and so many unique cases. I got to experience the gamut, and I came home and I realized that I know I want to help people, but it didn't resonate with me about cutting people open and giving them vaccinations. As I witnessed the doctor doing that, it was like, I want to do something else to help people. And so it really just kind of led me on this journey of really wanting to understand how I could do that. And ultimately, I realized that prevention is the best medicine. If we can help educate people and give people the tools of how to prevent getting sick, then we've done a lot of good for these people. And in our world right now, I believe people have gotten so disconnected from nature, from how to actually, the basics of being healthy and staying healthy. And we have so much marketing. We're marketed to every single day that there's this panacea for health. Take this pill, take this vitamin, buy this machine, and you're going to be healthy, when really everything we need has already been given by nature. Sunlight, the Earth's magnetism, movement, water, all of these things, they're already there and abundant for us. And I'm just really passionate about helping people remember what has already been given to them, how to utilize it, how to stay healthy so that we don't ever have to visit a doctor.
Absolutely. Tracy, me and Ultimash love that. We talk about it all the time on our podcast, right? Just the fundamentals, the foundations. And just like you said, even waking up, looking out, going out for a walk, fresh air, getting some sunlight in, right? We know that's going to help you throughout the day. We know staying hydrated, which is what you talk about, will help you throughout the day. There's even research for grounding our feet, right? Getting connected with nature. We talk about forest bathing on this podcast. So there's so much of kind of what you just said that we talk about and resonate with. So definitely appreciate that. Now, water itself has a lot of physics behind it and chemistry behind it as well. I love chemistry, unlike Altamar, so I love to get nerdy with it. But I think I love chem. I honestly wish I switched my major to chemistry, but I was bio. But when people, I think about water, right, they don't really, no research study kind of comes to mind besides maybe one that I at least think about that I haven't read too much into, but maybe you can clarify it for us. It's the one, I think it was somewhere in Asia where there was someone who was speaking, frequencies to water, right? Negative vibes, good vibes. And these water molecules would crystallize based off the words they would say. Can you kind of take us through what that research experiment showed?
Yeah, totally. So Dr. Emoto is the one that really discovered that he would take these water droplets and he would say, put the word like love on the glass or speak things over it, or anything that had frequency and vibration. He was really wanting to understand how water receives information and how it holds information. The interesting thing about Dr. Emoto's work is a lot of scientists will say that it's not credible work because what he did was he would do a lot of samples, like thousands of samples, and take the best ones and then take photos of those. And that's not necessarily something that we can say this is scientific. But what I do love about his research, and we give him credit for and are so grateful for Dr. Emoto, is that he awakened us. He helped us to see there is something to this that we can dive into deeper and really explore. And there's more to water than this surface level hydrogen, oxygen, there's something more. And I love that. And I'm grateful for Dr. Emoto for that. But there's new scientists, new researchers that are really discovering so much more about water. Like my friend, Dr. Gerald Pollack, he works at the University of Washington in Seattle. He discovered the fourth phase of water, structured water, and how H3O2 or easy water or fourth phase water, there's different names for it, can hold information. Just like you look at the bees, how they use this like honey, the honeycomb has this hexagonal structure to it. We realize that in nature, they use that because that's the most efficient way to hold the honey, is that you're going to hold more honey because of this hexagonal structure. And when water gets structured, it's the same thing. It's like these sheet-like structures that are these hexagonal structures in sheet forms. And so when water is structured, it actually potentially could hold more information than the cells in your cell phones or your computer, or these crystalline structures that are made out of silica. So that alone right there is like, whoa, water can hold information. It holds information. So that kind of goes back to Dr. Emoto's work, where it's like, if you're speaking words over water or you're writing something over it, was Dr. Emoto onto something by saying that water can hold information inside of it? So that's something that it's like, I love his work and I'm so grateful for it, but it is controversial.
No, I love that. I mean, definitely cherry picking data is something that we all frown upon. If you're a true scientist and you're trying to question work, and I think that, I think Adam Grant talks about this a lot, right? When you're a scientist, you're always trying to prove yourself wrong rather than prove yourself right. And it's something that I'm learning being in the academic sector a little bit more. But I got to ask you, not being familiar with that work, what was the premise? Like, what was the inspiration for trying to identify how much information water can hold? Or better yet, what's the takeaway that we have or that you get from that information? Like, how does that help you in your practice?
Yeah. So with Dr. Emoto's work, the takeaway that I get from that is that water does have information and it's beyond the chemistry. We, for many years, I think, well, actually, the ancients have always been talking about how there's something more to water. I mean, you see in the ancient texts that there's something, they talk about living water. There's many ancients that have talked about it. But as we come back to our world where we feel that we're so scientific and so smart with all of our data and our microscopes and all these things, we couldn't see more to water than the molecules that were there, right? Or the atoms that it's made up of. So we're starting to remember that water isn't just the chemistry. There's the physics, there's the bioenergetics, and then there's something far beyond that maybe we don't even understand yet. And that's what gets me really excited is I see the potential that there's so much more for us to discover with water that we haven't even scratched the surface of yet.
You mentioned earlier then that greater than 98% of our bodies is water. Now, I think in the basic sciences, most of us learn it's anywhere from 60 to 75%, and the rest of it, you have skeletal muscle mass, right? You have actual bones and organs and that kind of stuff. But you're saying greater than upwards of 98%. What do you mean by that?
That's a really great question because it confuses a lot of people. So if we're talking about body mass and percentages, then yes, our body can be, it depends on the different organs and which systems you're looking at. It's going to be between 60 and 80%. It depends on the person too, how hydrated you are, dehydrated, or your age. When you're a baby, we're so much more water. As we age, we become less and less. So those numbers are really going to fluctuate. But we're not talking about the mass, we're talking about the actual molecules. And we know from chemistry that hydrogen, if you look at the periodic table, it's the first element on the periodic table. It's also the smallest as well. And so if we're looking at the size, these molecules are very tiny. And so 98.9% of the molecules are water. And so it's not by mass or by weight. It's the molecules that are in your body. So that's different. So that's why it can be confusing.
Gotcha. No, thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to ask now, kind of going back to the H3O2 versus H2O. I've been following your work, and it seems like water doesn't necessarily stay still in nature, right? It's kind of always conforming. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so you're right. It is. It's constantly moving. It's like this dance. Everything's connecting and disconnecting and moving. So it's not solid, but it's crystalline. If there's minerals in the water, like if you look at a crystal, if you have a crystal sitting here, what is the crystal made up of? It's minerals. The mineral content makes your crystals, and the water can become crystalline as well. It needs minerals in it. And H3O2 is water that's structured by nature. So when you get water from a natural living source, it's going to have minerals in it. And it's this crystalline structure by nature, vortexed, mineralized. And if you look at that water and really study it like Gerald Pollack did, what he discovered is that it's really like it's structured in these sheet-like structures that are kind of like honeycomb structures. Mm-hmm. But the water that's dead and incoherent is not structured. It doesn't have a structure. It's incoherent. So, for example, and then if you look at Dr. Emoto's work too, you'll notice, even though he cherry-picked his stuff, you can see incoherent water droplets as opposed to coherent water droplets, the ones that look beautiful in these geometric structures that look like a snowflake, or one that's very incoherent and dissonant, and it's just a blob of nonsense, or that's what we would think when we perceive it. So obviously there's still more to be studied on that. Who knows? Maybe me calling it nonsense is not true, but that's what that's what it appears from what I understand. So
Right.
it's definitely there's something very unique about it, and it's not something that we can just see if you take one H2O, this molecule of H2O, and just say, okay, I'm just going to look at this molecule. We want to look at the whole thing together and see, okay, how is this water working together? How is this body of water coming together? And so it's actually really fun to think about, because it really doesn't make sense. It's kind of confusing to a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. No. And I want to bring the listeners, kind of let them think about H2O. When we think about it, right, it's that Mickey Mouse structure, right? You have their two H's up top and then you have your O at the bottom. But when you think of H3O2, if you try to put that together like a puzzle piece, you're getting, I guess it's a hexagon, or, when you start building these together, you're starting to get that structure. And so when you say that it can hold more information, what exactly does that mean? Is it in terms of like minerals, or is it in terms of different like frequencies?
Yeah. So that's another really beautiful question. So if you think about oxygen, it has 5 different potentials, right? When oxygen is either like 0, -1, -2, +1, +2. So it has 5 different potentials, as opposed to when you're looking at your computer and you look at information inside of those cells, it's zeros and ones, right? Zeros, ones, zeros, ones. But this oxygen has 5 different potentials. So if you do the math on that, according to Gerald Pollack, he thinks that it could carry up to 1 billion times more information.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess the obvious question then is, how do we get H3O2? How do we start drinking that rather than just regular old tap water or bottled water?
Yeah, so that's the $1 million question, right? It's like, what is H3O2 and how do you make it? Nature makes it on its own. That's what I love. Just like the beginning of the conversation we were talking about, is everything we need's already been given, right? It's there. If you've ever had the opportunity to go to a natural mineral spring, how did you feel when you drank that water?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Alaska on top of the glaciers, where it's like the cleanest water. They tell you bring a bottle when you take the helicopter right up, go right to the water and drink it. And I mean, I can still, honestly, I'm not even kidding to the listeners, I can still remember that just cold, fresh taste of it.
Yeah. And was there something in your body where just like you felt alive? There was some sort of
It was cold,
energy to it?
but it was definitely cold on the mountain. But it's tough. I guess it's tough to say that, just because it was kind of just like 1 or 2 sips because the water was so cold. But yeah. We'll get to this later on the podcast in terms of kind of how do we get to that in our state right now, which I'm excited to kind of talk about. But personally, I at least haven't.
So most people will say when they go to a natural mineral spring that there's this something to it where you just feel alive. You feel so hydrated. And if you're really in tune and tapped into your body, you're going to notice there's a huge difference between getting water straight from a natural mineral spring, putting it in a cup, or just drinking it from there, or pouring water from the tap. And there's many reasons why that's different. In nature, water is moving. It's vortexing. And the vortex, we believe, is drawing in the natural minerals that our body needs, and it's deleting the information that's not good for us. I have no idea how this works. This is still to be uncovered, but we believe this is the way that the vortexing works, and it's so beautiful. It's some sort of divine creation, but nature, it happens naturally in nature. So vortexing, drawing in the minerals, informing the water of these living frequencies that bring us to life and are healthy for us. And then the journey that the water takes, coming through these minerals, these rocks, wherever it's coming, it's drawing up into itself the minerals from it, so it can become a crystalline structure from the minerals that it's taking in. But with that water, so we've got, by the nature's making that for us, but then we adulterate it as humans. So when we get water from the tap, usually it's gone through a long journey to get to us and been informed with many different things that we probably don't want. Like the water usually has chlorine, chloramines in it, fluoride. It has so many different contaminants in it, pharmaceuticals, things that we don't want, and it's informing the water of this information that's making us sick. And then it's trapped. It's like it's not in its natural vortexing state. It's going through the pipes and in these unnatural movements, and people might make fun of that and say that's so weird, but when you really start to study water, it doesn't want to move that way. It wants to vortex. And so when it comes through the pipes and it's coming through the whole system that it comes through to get to us, usually it's contaminated. And so what we want to do is we want to think about the chemistry of the water when it's coming to us. We want to filter that water, right? So most people have like a filter on their refrigerator. I don't know. What kind of filter do you have at your house?
I unfortunately do not have one.
Okay.
I use a Berkey. And honestly, I got it after I listened to you and I saw episode 2 of Down to Earth.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I love Aaron, and he's great. Zach's awesome too.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. That's great. You have a Berkey. You don't have anything.
I guess I will be getting a Berkey.
You will.
Yeah.
or an aqua true, which we'll talk about.
We're here to inform, elevate the conversation. So a lot of people get their water from, I go to my aunt's and my grandparents' house and I ask them where the water is and they're like, it's in the refrigerator. There's a filtration system on there. Well, usually it's some sort of like carbon filter. Mm-hmm. But we need filters that are more comprehensive than that. So a lot of times I love to promote either a RO system or distillation, where it's like we can get rid of all the chemical contamination and trust that water is pure of chemical contamination. So now the chemistry is pure. There's purity to the water. But along with that, the water is also like dead, hungry, incoherent. It doesn't have those natural minerals that make it have that ability to be structured. So we need to reintroduce minerals back into the water. We get the opportunity to do that. And so we want to reintroduce minerals back into the water. And then once we do that, we have the opportunity also to structure the water just like nature does. And so we can vortex the water like nature does. And there's many ways that you can do that. I use a vortexing apparatus. There's many different ones on the market. You can also add botanicals to the water. Many botanicals, their cells are made of fourth phase water. So lemon, lime, cucumbers, all of those botanicals are fourth phase water. Aloe vera. So we have this opportunity to help reinform the water and give it back that natural state. So yeah, that's what I do at my house. Is I do have tap water, but I filter it with reverse osmosis. I add minerals back into the water and then I vortex it.
Now, Tracy, you mentioned a lot of the contaminants as they're going through the pipes, right? You talked about fluoride, you talked about chlorine, a couple of other ones. But I imagine that there's a purpose, right? We, at least for fluoride, I know one of the main reasons that they talked about this is it was built in there, or I don't know, installed or put into the water flow to help reduce tooth decay, right? That's on a general global level. I imagine some of the other elements have a purpose, or maybe not. Like, why are they in there in the first place?
Oh, yeah, they definitely have a purpose. I mean, we want to make sure that there's not amoebas, and we want to make sure that the water is, they're trying to make sure that the water is safe to drink. I mean, if you go to different countries where they're taking water from different sources, that the water has pathogens in it and things that we don't want that in our body. So it's killing that for us so that it's safer to drink. But also with that safety that they're creating, we're also creating a level of toxicity too. So it's like it's a double-edged sword, really. I mean, I wish we could all live near a natural living spring and have like pure water like Adam and Eve did. That would be amazing. So there's a reason why that's happening, but it's also not ideal for us to drink tap water. I mean, they're just for the reasons that I explained, is that that is contamination. It's toxic, caustic for our bodies. And also not just with the chemistry or the chemicals that are in it, but also the information that water has received on its way to us. The bioenergetics, the physics has changed of the water. The way that little Mickey Mouse structure has changed. And so we want to make sure that we're addressing what we can. I mean, even talking to you guys right now about this, and the beginning of the podcast, we're talking about how we haven't even scratched the surface of water. The things that I'm telling you 20 years from now, 10 years from now, we might be like, okay, now we're definitely going to say, here's some more information. Here's how we can improve it. But for now, this is what I know. This is what I understand after interviewing a lot of the experts, doing my own research, doing our own studies. This is what we know. And this is the best way that we feel like we can get water that is closest to nature in our homes.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what I'll say is, here's kind of what I'm hearing from you, right? I mean, so I think one of the things is over the last couple of years, I've been hearing a lot of this conversation talking about water, the contaminants in the water. And I think over the past few years, as the whole wellness expeditions picked up, the volume on that conversation has dialed up. You know, you're contributing to some of that and giving it the light that it deserves, right? My fear, though, Tracy, is that I think a lot of times people start freaking out, right? They start majoring in the minors, as we say, right? And they're like, oh my God, water's got contaminants. Like, it's so bad, right? And when there's so many other lower hanging fruit that we need to address, like eating fruit, right? Talking about things like that. You know, one of the things that you mentioned on your show, maybe it was your show or you were a guest somewhere, is you had talked about, perhaps it was that trip when you were in Guatemala, and that your mission is that, you know, you want to bring clean, you know, drinking water to every single person out in the world, right? Because not everybody has the luxury of having, they're not privileged as we are. And that was such a beautiful thing, warmed my heart. So I want to make sure that people understand the context that we're talking in. And hey, that there is a purpose, but there is the next level stuff, which is kind of what we're talking about. Is that fair?
Absolutely. There's good, better, best. And I love that you brought that up, because we don't want anyone to be stressed because of this podcast or feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many things I need to do and I don't know how to do it. There's so much opportunity. And just like with our health, we could be doing so many different things and trying to be perfect, but we never will be. And I can try to tell you all the perfect things to do with water, but I'm not God. I'm not divine. I don't know either. I'm telling you just the things that I do know from my imperfect human body. But you're right. It's not something that you need to stress out about. I think the goal is, yes, we want everyone to understand that water is so important, and I'm here to help open up the conversation, to help us remember that we have this opportunity to really look at it and go, it's something really important, and maybe I could be paying a little more attention to it than I have been, instead of just opening up the tap or just choosing any water bottle just because it says water. There's a difference in the waters. And if we can go back to the basics, say you're at the local grocery store and you buy your water. Just choose a water that you're going to look at the back of the label. And if it says purified water, stay away from that. You want to choose the water that says mountain spring water or water that's from a living source. Just that alone is going to make a huge difference in your body, because nature already structured that water. It has natural mineral content in it. And so just choosing that alone is going to hydrate your cells at a more efficient level than drinking purified water. And also, some of these waters that say purified are just tap water, because the regulations for water are not what you may think that they are.
Yeah.
So stay away from the purified water, because we don't really even know what level that water was purified. What does that mean? What's in it? I don't know. And it's not like we can take a microscope with us and really test all of the water. So let's just get some purified or some mountain spring water. That's going to be the best way to start if you buy your water. A lot of people will buy water from companies that purify water, like they're getting reverse osmosis water. And most people have the opportunity to choose, oh, okay, so I don't have to buy from this water, that this company that filters water. I can choose to have my water delivered from a company that's the company that gets it from a mountain spring. So I know Mountain Valley delivers to a lot of different homes. So just that alone, you could make that simple switch, and that could change everything for you and your children. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, sorry. I love what you did there in terms of, you kind of gave a recipe, right? Flip the over, look at the ingredient label and talk about not giving any specific brands. Unfortunately, though, knowing a lot of my closest friends, and they want to make it as simple as possible. So are there any brands that you're a fan of that, hey, so people want to just go look at it on the grocery store shelf and say, oh, I know that one is something that's reputable. They do a good job. Are there any specific brands that you're a fan of?
Yeah, so I have friends that have tested different waters in their labs, and I think that ones that we really like are Mountain Valley spring water is a really good one. Fiji water is even a good water as far as the minerals that are in it. Glacial water is good. There's different waters like volcanic Hawaiian water. So when I'm out, though, the things that I like to choose, if I have the opportunity, is I want to choose water from a natural source. And then I also want to choose water that's in a glass bottle, if I can, because as we talked about previously, water is the source receiver of all information it comes in contact with. So if water is in a plastic bottle, it's going to be taking all of that in. And also, water is the strongest solvent on the planet. So if we're thinking, even if it says BPA free, what other chemicals were used to make up that plastic bottle? Just because there isn't any BPA in it, there's other chemicals that have made that up. So, but then also, a lot of people will make the argument that, well, glass bottles to ship it, that's hard on the carbon footprint for that is bigger because of what it takes to ship it. So there's no shame in any of this. There's no like, do this or do that. It's just like, hey, maybe consider these things, that if you are interested in what's inside of your water, if it's in a plastic bottle, you are going to be ingesting that.
Right on. And, I remember listening to, again, doing my homework, you were talking about a quick life hack when you do have that quality water and you got it in your bottle, glass bottle, hopefully, or a metal bottle, and you're going through TSA. They make you dump it all out. But you've got an awesome life hack. You want to tell us about that one?
So you can take your water with you, guys. You just need to tell TSA that it's for medical purposes, and they will test the water. They have to test the water for you. And for me, it is medical purposes. I mean, it's for my health. This is water that I'm not sure what type of water I'm going to be getting when I'm at the airport, and we need to hydrate. I'm not going to go on an airplane dehydrated. And I know that at my local airport, they actually don't even have any mountain spring options. There's like options that are...
Not to mention, it's like $13 a bottle when I go.
Oh, yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah, exactly.
No, thanks.
Some people can't afford that. It's not something that they want to spend their money on. So
I can't afford that. I got student loans.
Student loans, man. Oh gosh.
How long does that process take for them to test it? Like, is there anything, you're not waiting long, I'm assuming.
So quick. It's so quick. Every time I've gone through, what you do is you start unpacking your stuff on the conveyor belt, and then you pull the water out separate and say, please test this is for medical purposes. And then they always just say, okay. And they put it through separately. And so it does take a little bit longer because you have to wait for them to test the water. But once they do it, it literally takes a few seconds.
Wow. And if they're like BS, you whip out this podcast episode and you show them and then you make them a subscriber. I like it.
Only one time have I had a problem.
Okay.
One of the TSA people was like, do you have a prescription for this water? And, like,
wow.
What? I've come through here for years saying that it's just medical. And then she ended up letting me go. But it was, they did give me a hard time once.
Mm-hmm. Tracy, I do want to ask. So a lot of people will also see bottles next to the Fiji and all these things saying pH 9.8, right? So alkaline water. What's the whole spiel about that?
Oh man, this is a great topic that I'm glad you brought up. We are marketed to so much, and it makes me really sad that the money sometimes gets in the way of real education and real truth.
Okay.
pH outside of your body is irrelevant to pH inside of your body, okay? Right. Like, you guys know this as doctors, that we have a natural buffering system. Our gut is naturally acidic, and everything that we ingest has to go through this buffering system. Otherwise, we would die if we didn't have this buffering system. It's like our whole body knows that it needs to bring everything into balance in order for our body's pH to be healthy. But the way that our body keeps everything in balance, it uses minerals. So a good example of this would be a lemon. It's acidic outside of the body, but it alkalizes. It helps alkalize. And I don't even know if alkalizing is the right word, because we're more slightly alkaline, like 7.2 is a better pH, which isn't actually neutral at the 7. Mm-hmm. So we want to be like slightly, but not too alkaline, right? We don't want to be like 8.0. We would be sick if we were. So
right.
We take a lemon and you take a litmus test of this, and it's like, it's acidic, but you bring it into your body and we notice that it helps alkalize the body. That lemon has minerals in it. It has structured water. It's a botanical that has H3O2. These things help hydrate the body and bring the body back into balance. And so that's just a marketing scam. I don't even like the word scam. Because I think that most people have really good intentions, and even the companies maybe that say alkaline, they believe it too. I know somebody who actually owned a company that was the alkaline water company.
There's a popular one out there, right? Yeah.
It's like 20 years ago I met this person, and this person was very passionate about helping people, but did not realize that didn't realize that it's like alkaline does not equal alkalize. These are different things.
Right.
So we want to think about what's alkalizing the body, and what alkalizes the body is minerals, and we want minerals to be in balance in our body. Also, minerals can't be out of balance. If they're out of balance, that's going to cause problems as well, but that's another topic. But it's like, let's make sure that we're looking at the things that we are ingesting. So, for example, there's so many popular water bottle companies out there that have that it's tap water or filtered water, and they've added minerals for taste. But some of the minerals in there, if you look at those minerals, there's like the things that they have added are dehydrating for the body. They're not things that are actually hydrating. And I wonder, I'm like, why did you add those specific minerals? So not all minerals are the same. And when you turn the back of the bottle and you look at it, if you don't understand chemistry and you don't understand all the minerals, I say the best thing to do is get natural spring water that was made by God.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So go ahead, Altosh.
Yeah, no, it's, again, going back to at the outset of this whole conversation, you talked about how everything that we need for success is already at hand. And it's so funny because I do think we're going to turn a lot of people off and be like, oh my God, these guys aren't telling me anything that I need to know. They're just telling me to drink natural water. How lame is that? I do want to ask you though. So you're talking about, different bottled waters, that kind of thing. We're talking about different contaminants in pipes. And now different regions of the country, different regions of the world are going to have different filtration systems, right? Now, I remember one of my old boss, Jay Ferrugia, talking about this, how there's sometimes, at least in New York City, in different parts of New York City, you would think the filtration system and it'd be much more contaminated. Whereas, Jersey is a little bit different. That's my home state, and other places. Are there ways for people to go identify their local region, city, state, whatever? They can kind of see what type of contaminants? Is there some organization out there that's testing that kind of stuff that can inform people with that stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Your city is required to post everything that's inside of your water. So all you need to do is just type in your city, go Google like San Diego tap water, and it will come up. That's required, or you can call the city and ask them to send you an updated report, and they do have to do that. So I actually suggest that everybody do that, because I get a lot of messages from people asking, what type of filtration system should I use? What type of home system? Everyone wants to know about their home because they're bathing in the water, they're cooking with the water. And I tell them it's not a one size fits all solution. We need to know what is the contamination in your water so that we know what type of media to use to filter it out. Because for your whole home, a reverse osmosis system is very inefficient. I mean, it creates a lot of wastewater that we don't want. So you're not going to do a whole RO system on your home. And so we're going to use carbon blocks and different filtration media in order to filter out your water. But we need to know specifically what is in your water.
Right.
Like
Tracy,
trihalomethanes are a huge thing. If you have high levels of trihalomethanes, that has been connected to women having miscarriages, especially if you have girls in your home that are of the age where they can have children. You want to make sure those trihalomethanes are not in your water, and they're not bathing in that water or drinking that water. That's going to affect them dramatically.
Yeah, Tracy, a lot of the words you're saying are pretty scary, right? But it gets even scarier when you see a lot of those big time words, right? So I use the EWG, Environmental Working Group. I know Dr. G talks about this, who I know you've been a guest on his podcast, and he does phenomenal work. So I went on EWG and I looked, typed in my zip code, and like you said, all the reports are there. And when I'm seeing 20 different, chemicals in there that I've never even heard of and seeing what their associations are, sure, it might say parts per billion, right? And at first glance, you're like, this is such a minute amount. But then you really start to, think about it and say, well, if I'm drinking 8 glasses of this, 10 glasses of this a day, over how many years am I going to live? Can this accumulate? Can this add up? And the alternative to that is, okay, maybe spending, right, $100, $200, $300, $400, but at least eliminating 99.9% of those chemicals, right? And so I just encourage all the listeners out there, it's not to freak you out, but if you are interested in seeing what the contaminations are, I think EWG is a fantastic website, and they're doing awesome work.
I love the EWG. Yes, that is one that I would definitely suggest, but also just calling the city and asking them to send you a report, or going online and getting it from the city. That's something that you can do as well, or both. Looking at both. I don't feel like more than one source is good too.
Absolutely.
Just to look at. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider, since our body is made up of mostly water, 98.9% water molecules. This is something we want to think about. And just like you had mentioned that, all these people might think, oh gosh, you haven't given us anything that we don't know. Water isn't just water. And I used to think when I was younger that water was just water. It's like bottled water, yay. You go to Costco, you go to places, and you're like, as long as I'm drinking bottled water, I'm good. As long as I drink eight glasses of water a day, I'm hydrated. Or try to drink a gallon of water. And it is simple. The answers are simple, and everything we need is already there. But sometimes that simple, small tweak can make all the difference in your health. And I personally have experienced that. When I was pregnant for my first daughter, I was really dehydrated, and I was only 24, and I was like eating a really healthy diet, juicing kale every day, working out. Like, if you looked at me, most of my friends would say I was the healthiest person they knew.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing was I would go to sleep at night and I couldn't sleep through the night because my tongue would be stuck to the roof of my mouth. My eyeballs would get stuck to my eyelids. And I couldn't figure out why. I kept going to the doctor. They would give me Restasis to try to lubricate my eyes, and everything was drying out, and it was so uncomfortable, and I couldn't quench my thirst either. It was like I kept drinking water and I couldn't quench it. And one day I realized, like, hey, when I drink this filtered water, I still have this unquenchable thirst. But when I drink mountain spring water, I feel different. It's like my thirst is quenched for longer. So I started playing with that, and it was because of that I was able to discover that I had a severe mineral imbalance. And that severe mineral imbalance was during my pregnancy, and during that pregnancy, I had such a small amount of amniotic fluid that they had to do an emergency cesarean on my daughter at 35 and a half weeks because she didn't have enough fluid. And so it affected the pregnancy, and it affected me. And once I got my minerals balanced, my brain fog went away, the dryness went away, the energy came back, the constipation went away. I got my life back. And it was this simple fix that no one had told me about, that I had not been educated on. And I think that's why I've dedicated my life to this work, because I own a functional medicine clinic here in San Diego. I've been seeing patients for 15 years and seeing people come in from the gamut, stage 4 cancer, autoimmune diseases, all of these things, and realizing that most of the people that come see me don't even understand the basics. Taking your shoes off, grounding to the earth, getting enough sunlight, drinking water that's from a natural mineral spring source, moving, getting enough movement, playtime, hugs, the things that like bring us to life.
Jumping on trampoline.
Jumping on my trampoline. These are our prescriptions now for our patients. And I'm not saying that it's that simple for everyone, but for a lot of people, they're trying so many things, getting the blood test, getting the CT scans, the MRI, going down this path, when maybe if they just went back to the basics, the body would be able to have the tools that it needs to remove the obstacles that are getting in the way for that person being healthy. So, it may seem like, oh, this is so simple and it's no big deal, but it is a big deal, especially over your lifetime. If you're drinking water that's void of minerals and not a hydrating, structured water, and you get this chronic dehydration over years' time, all dehydration is connected to inflammation, and all inflammation we know is connected to disease. That may seem like an oversimplification, but I like to do my deductive reasoning and find ways that I can reduce inflammation in my body. And if I can start with getting hydrated, why not?
Tracy, how do you assess that, the dehydration status, or just hydration status on your patients, your clients?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. We have different machines. We have an EAV machine, and then there's simple devices.
The EAV machine?
An EAV is electroacupuncture, according to Vol, and it can test the currents going through your body using acupuncture points. We use German acupuncture points, Chinese acupuncture points to see the voltage going through the body. It sends a small current through the body, and we can see what's going on if there's any type of imbalances in the body. There's many ways that you can test, that we can test, but for people at home that can't come to see us, or someone that specializes in testing for hydration, just tuning into your body. Are you constipated? Are you getting headaches? Do you feel thirsty? Some people, they don't even have that thirst signal, but is your skin dehydrated? Do you feel hungry all the time? A lot of times we confuse hunger with thirst, and our body's really thirsty and we think we're hungry. So we keep eating, and a lot of people are overfed and undernourished. So there's different things that you can look at inside of your body to say, maybe I might be a little dehydrated. And hydration isn't just, oh, I'm dehydrated, so let me drink 8 ounces of water. If you've been chronically dehydrated over a long period of time, it's going to take a little while for your cells to get rehydrated. And that's usually not with just a cup of good water.
Yeah. So Tracy, is it safe to say then that quantity doesn't matter as much as we thought, right? Because I know in the healthcare system, at least, we constantly try, we try to avoid it, but I know a lot of doctors do say, drink half your body weight in ounces, in fluid ounces. And what you're saying is, obviously if we're drinking this, alive water, the H3O2, we'll need less of that. So is there still like a certain threshold that you recommend people, or is it still just kind of tuning into your body in terms of that hydration status?
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up, Dr. Darsh. When you are drinking structured water, you are going to need less water to get hydrated. And that's awesome too, because when you think about it, you don't have to pee as much. You get more time. Like, remember when you were a kid and you were playing on the playground and you're like, oh, I don't want to go pee because I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
I think even as an adult, it's like that. It's like, dang it, I have to go to the bathroom. If you don't have to drink as much water because that water is hydrating your cells and it's not just passing through you. When we're drinking dead, void water, it's just passing through us. It's not hydrating efficiently the way that we need it to. So we want that balance of that osmotic balance of the fluids between our extracellular fluid and our intracellular fluid. If you have too much water outside of the cell and that extracellular fluid, you're going to have things like edema, that puffiness, and your cells are going to be dehydrated. We also don't want the cells overhydrated. We don't want them too hypertonic. As we know, that's like cancerous cells, sick cells, they're too hypertonic. We need them balanced. And that comes with a balanced set of minerals and having that biochemistry and balance. So there is, we want to make sure we have that. But I think that when we're drinking the structured water, the H3O2, we are not going to need to drink as much water. I drink far less water than I used to drink. I used to drink almost a gallon a day when I was in that dehydrated state, just trying to hydrate myself. And it didn't. And now, it depends on the day. We want to look at how much are you working out? Are you going in a sauna? Are you sweating a lot? Are you eating hydrating foods or dehydrating foods? Because we need to compensate for that. So if you're eating a lot of bread, a lot of crackers, a lot of packaged foods, you want to remember that those are very dehydrated foods, and it's good to drink water to help rehydrate that. If you're eating things like mostly watermelon and cucumber and salads, you're not going to need as much water because there's H3O2 inside of that food. I say, eat your water, right? So if you're eating a lot of hydrating foods, you are not going to need to drink as much. Right. So it's going to be different for every single person. That old thing of like drink half your body weight in water, that's like a one size fits all approach. And I don't believe in one size fits all approaches because all of our biochemistry is different, our mineral balance is different, our diet is different, our movement, our exercise, the climate you live in. So it's really like tuning in and listening to your body and really listening to the symptoms. Do you have a headache? Instead of taking Advil, maybe think, might I be a little dehydrated? How can I hydrate my body? Am I eating dehydrating foods? Maybe I can switch my diet up. Maybe I can change the water to structured water, things like that. Like, just start tuning in and asking more questions, getting curious. I encourage you to start getting curious as opposed to having this one size fits all prescription.
Absolutely. I love that. Now, my next question here is there a certain time where you'll drink most of your water, or are you going to vary it based off kind of the, prompts that you just said, if it's sauna or getting out, traveling, etc.?
Well, I try to drink water as soon as I wake up in the morning. I take hydrogen tablets and I put them in my water because I love that free hydrogen to help modulate the inflammation in my body. And I'll drink about 16 to 30 ounces of water, depending how I feel. So I drink a lot of it as soon as I wake up. And then I kind of just sip on it throughout the day. This is like a 64-ounce glass, and I'll just drink this throughout the day. And honestly, I don't really pay attention to how much water I drink anymore because I try to think more, did I have hydrating foods? I try to keep things out of my house like crackers and breads. And I know I love those things, but those are more of a treat now. Those aren't so much my diet because I care about having juicy joints. I care about having glowing, hydrated skin. I care about having my brain function at optimal levels. And so I know that I'm fueling my body with the type of food that I eat. And so I try to eat more botanicals that are living, that have this voltage potential to them. Like say you took a potato and you check the voltage of the potato. Is it stealing electrons or giving electrons too? If you have this raw potato, you're going to notice that it's more of an electron donor, and you cook it, it's an electron stealer. It makes a difference how we prepare the food. If we heat it, we dehydrate it, or if it's alive. So try to eat more living foods.
Tracy, you mentioned hydrogen that you're taking, including it in your water. How does that work? Like, what's that doing?
So hydrogen's awesome. First of all, those tablets aren't actually hydrogen. They're liberating the hydrogen from the water. So it's liberating
Gotcha.
hydrogen gas. So that gas comes off of the water. And so when you put those hydrogen tablets in your water, you want to make sure that you wait for the tablet to dissolve. I use that time to pray over the water, set intentions over the water. And as that gas is coming off, that's the juice right there. We want the gas. Once that gas dissipates, it's no good. It's not actually the tablet that is what's giving us the benefit. It's the hydrogen that's being liberated because of that chemical reaction. So hydrogen is neutral. We know that. It's the smallest atom. So it can get into the aquaporins of the cell very easily, has no problem getting in. And once it gets in, studies are showing that it can help modulate inflammation in the body. And we know that inflammation is good. We don't want no inflammation, but we want to modulate inflammation.
Of course.
So this helps to modulate inflammation in the body. Whenever I know my personal experience with hydrogen is if I'm feeling tired or I'm having brain fog, instead of going for coffee or caffeine or any type of stimulant, I take a hydrogen tablet, put it in water, and drink it with some minerals. And every time I feel like, I feel better now. So I know from my own personal experience, it's doing something. And brain fog, we know, is inflammation in the brain. So it immediately gets into my cells and I feel balanced again. So for me personally, it's been something that's been a really good life hack to just help me get back into that balanced state where I don't have the brain fog, I don't feel tired, I feel good. Unless my body needs to rest. It's not like it's not a stimulant that's gonna send you this immediate adrenaline charge. It's just gonna help balance everything out. So if the reason I'm tired is because there's neuroinflammation or my body has extra inflammation that's trying to deal with, it helps modulate all of that. And then I'm able to just feel more balanced in my body.
How does one go about obtaining that? Is that something that's prescription based? Is that something that's a supplement, or those tablets you're talking about?
They're really easy to get a hold of. If you go to my website, I have a link for them, or you can go on to waterandwellness.com or graceandparker.com. Quicksilver has them. They're literally a little tablet that causes this chemical reaction with the water that liberates the hydrogen. So you have free hydrogen gas coming off of the water. And when that gas gets into your body's able to utilize the hydrogen gas. It gets into the cells, the aquaporins of the cells, and helps modulate the inflammation. It's about $1 a tablet. And I use them every single day, especially when I'm going to fly. Oh, this is my main hack for not having jet lag. Every time I would fly, I would get jet lag. Now I take a hydrogen tablet before I get on the flight, and then I have one afterwards, and I don't have jet lag anymore.
So I'm wondering, Tracy, why is it that, if it is important, which sounds like it is, and just doing a quick PubMed search. There are tons of recent evidence actually published on this. But, I'm wondering, why is the body's intrinsic capabilities of liberating the hydrogen, if it is beneficial, not so good? Why is it that we need this assist from these tablets?
Well, our body does have hydrogen. It's just that sometimes, if you bite into an apple, hydrogen gas is going to come off of the apple. It's in nature. We're getting hydrogen. But we're also living in a toxic world that there's so much assault on our body that to a level that we've probably never had before. So we're constantly needing to make up for that. So if you're feeling stressed or you're sitting in front of your computer with all of these like blue lights and toxic energy coming off of it, non-native electromagnetic frequencies, or you're drinking tap water with contamination in it, or you're eating food that has contaminants, there's a lot of things happening in our environment that are assaulting our body and causing this inflammation that we didn't really need to deal with before. So that's just a way to help to calm and put out the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, the listeners have gotten a bunch of tips, right? And earlier in the podcast, you started saying that there's good, better, and best. So I would love to kind of just go through those progressions. If you have one or two tips for people, right? So let's start with somebody who is clueless about kind of all this stuff, right? They're just drinking normal tap water, and they want to get good. What's the one thing or two things that you would recommend them doing?
Yeah, so just to start, like I would say, if you're drinking regular tap water, maybe you can go to the grocery store and start buying mountain spring water. That's a great way to start. If you want to do it at home, you can get a filter. There's different filters that you can buy. I use a reverse osmosis filter. You can invest in one. I like the AquaTrue. It's easy. You don't need to connect it to anything. It makes reverse osmosis water for you on the spot. I think it's like $399. That may seem like a lot of money, but if you break it down in how many lattes you buy every day, or going to Starbucks, or other things that you're doing, maybe there's something you can cut out to afford it. Maybe not, but if you can, this could be a really nice thing to do to filter your water. So an AquaTrue is nice, but remember, once you have that reverse osmosis water, you want to add minerals back into the water. I love Quinton minerals because they have all 78 trace elements that are in perfect balance. They come from the ocean, so they're perfectly balanced. I put those in my water. So that's a great thing that you can do. And then if you want to take it a step further, you can buy a vortexing apparatus and actually vortex the water to help to change the physics of the water, the deletion of the information that's in the water, and bringing in those new living frequencies into the water. So the good would be maybe buying some healthy water. Better would be you can make it at home, because now you can filter it, you can add balanced minerals back in, and you can vortex it.
Okay, I'm at the vortexing spot then. That's where I need to go next. I can find those at your website, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so graysonparker.com has them. You can go to tracyduhs.com and I talk about it. Or you can send me a message and I'd be happy to help direct you, because there are different apparatuses depending on your budget and specifically what you're looking for.
Cool. I will definitely message you then.
Well, Tracy, we want to thank you so much for your time. And honestly, your infectious energy, you're talking a lot about energy, and you're giving off nothing but awesome vibes here. And we really appreciate that. And all the things that you're doing with your podcast and kind of just your mission and spreading the good word out there. So thank you so much for doing that. And what we want to know is, hey, what's next for you? What are you excited about in the near future? What are you planning?
What's next for me is I am reaching out to different people, different scientists, different doctors that are really excited about water and researching water. And I'm excited about bringing people together so that we can work together as a team, as a group, to really start to understand water at a higher level. And also bring us together so that as a team, we can help eliminate anybody that doesn't have access to clean drinking water. That's going to be changed. Every single person on this planet deserves the right to have access to clean drinking water, and that will be changed. And so I'm excited to be a part of that solution. I'm definitely not the solution, but I want to be a part of the solution. And so that's what I'm excited about.
Awesome. And I can definitely vouch for that. Your Instagram's not only educational, but also fun. You're always jumping on a trampoline. You've got so much positive energy. So just like what Altwatch said, thank you so much for coming on here. Last question for you that we ask everyone is, how do we put the health back in healthcare?
Oh, the health back in healthcare. Well, I think the way to put the health back into healthcare is to really get curious about the type of water you're drinking and how you're hydrating your cells. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see that I have these 9 pillars of health that kind of break down things like movement, playtime, sleep, nutrition, minerals, things that we can do that are basics to help our bodies be the most optimal so that we don't ever have to go to a doctor again to deal with any type of issues, because our body just knows what to do itself.
We're not that bad though, Tracy.
I love doctors.
I know.
I love doctors, and I am grateful for doctors. And I do want to preface that too, that we need doctors, but it's our bodies have these little doctors inside of them, and I think that we don't access them enough. And that's where I really like to help people realize that your body has this innate intelligence and it knows what to do. But we get in accidents, we have emergencies, we live in a toxic world, and we need our doctors to help us at times. But I think sometimes we overuse jumping to, as people, we think, oh, maybe I need to take this medication or I need to go do this thing, when it's like, let's try the basics first. If that doesn't work, then we can go get help. And that's what we definitely are so grateful for our MDs for.
Couldn't agree more. I think if there's been a central theme that we've talked about over and over is make sure you can hone in the basics. And there's nothing more basic in a good way than water. Thanks, Tracy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, what an awesome episode with Tracy. We're just so grateful that she took the time out to come and give us her knowledge about water. And honestly, guys, she's just touching the tip of the iceberg when it comes to hydration. Now, if you want to learn more in depth about the topics we touched on today in this episode, go ahead and head over to her podcast, because she goes into way more depth with awesome guests about all things water, hydration, and wellness. Now, for doctors, the story has changed. Visit financialresidency.com/locum story to see if a locum tenens assignment is right for you. It's here you'll find the unbiased answers you are after, so you can decide if locum tenens is your next chapter. Time for that quick disclaimer. Everything in this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of medicine, and we are not providing medical advice. No physician-patient relationship is formed, and anything discussed in this podcast does not represent the views of our employers. We recommend that you seek the guidance of your personal physician regarding any specific health-related issues. And I think it's safe to say that if you have been sticking with us now, we're almost here at a year anniversary. You guys are officially medicine redefiners. And we really appreciate you guys sticking it through with us. And we hope you're learning just as much as we are. If you could do us a favor, please rate the podcast, review the podcast, subscribe as always, and share this episode with your family and loved ones. And we will see you next week with a lessons learned. Have a good one.